1847 and part of 1848, Brigham Young was presiding over his Mormon saints in Mexico, and his theocracy was named Deseret. Changes came in 1848 as a result of a U.S. victory in the war with Mexico. Deseret suddenly fell under the jurisdiction of the United States. Immediately thereafter, Brigham Young proposed to Congress that the territory of Deseret become a state. His proposed state of Deseret would encompass virtually all of present-day Utah and Nevada, portions of Arizona, all of Southern California, including San Diego and Los Angeles, and parts of Idaho and Oregon. But the Congress found many reasons why Brigham's territory of Deseret should not become a state. Among these reasons were: Brigham Young was a polygamist who, over his lifetime, had 56 wives and 57 children, and many of his followers were polygamists as well. Secondly, his proposed state was too large, and as a theocracy, it violated the concept of separation of church and state. It also seemed to require that citizens of the proposed state be faithful, practicing Mormons. The Utah Territory. So on September 9th, 1850, Congress rejected Brigham's totalitarian kingdom and created the much smaller Utah Territory, where Mormons could theoretically grow and prosper side by side with all other races and religions. But Brigham rejected this pathway to statehood in favor of his own view of a Mormon kingdom in which he reigned supreme. Meanwhile, President Millard Fillmore appointed Brigham Young governor of the new Utah Territory. Governor Young responded by creating Utah's Millard County and a city within it named Fillmore. Located near the center of the state, Fillmore was designated Utah's capital city, and the Utah Territorial Legislature met there just once. Fillmore, Utah was a most unfortunate choice for capital city. In the census of 2020, it had a population of only 2,592 people. Power struggle. New issues arose, and the conflict between church and state became more intense. For example, it was customary for federal officials to install a government structure and a court system in territories that were petitioning for statehood. But Mormons in the Utah Territory ignored their federally appointed officials in favor of their church leaders and bypassed the installed court system in favor of their own church courts. Controversy. When Governor Brigham Young addressed the Utah Territorial Legislature on February 5th, 1852, he spoke primarily about slavery, but he also covered the topic of killing, even beheading, as a form of atonement for crimes. Soon thereafter, various church leaders began to speak about blood atonement for sins and crimes. Critics emerge. Prominent Mormon critics then began to write fiction and nonfiction stories about Danite vigilantes killing apostates who attempted to flee Utah. The story spread worldwide. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Even British novelist Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote his first Sherlock Holmes story with a Utah setting and a blood atonement theme. His fictional account was entitled A Study in Scarlet. Allegations. Brigham Young was accused of advocating blood atonement as a policy and of having a hand in the slaughter of a non-Mormon wagon train. Despite later denials, the evidence that the church practiced blood atonement is compelling. But the claim of Young's involvement in the Mountain Meadows Massacre remains in the realm of polemics. But let's go back to Brigham Young's February 5th, 1852 address to the Utah Territorial Legislature, the one where he spoke primarily about slavery. It is interesting that 1 month after the governor's address on slavery, the Utah Territorial Legislature passed acts that legalized both black and Indian slavery. President James Buchanan found it necessary to replace Brigham Young, so he sent Alfred Cumming as the new governor of the Utah Territory. Alfred Cumming was accompanied with 2,500 troops that were sent to Utah and remained there from 1857 to 1858. Buchanan's actions have been called the Utah War, but there were no significant battles or casualties. The fight for separation of church and state. Cumming was the first of a total of 14 non-Mormon governors for the Utah Territory. James Buchanan appointed 1. Lincoln appointed 3. Johnson 1. Grant 5. Arthur 1. Cleveland 2. and Harrison 1. All 14 of these non-Mormon governors were in an intense struggle for power and control. But power and control, for the most part, remained with Brigham Young. The church grip began to loosen, however, under Brigham's successor, John Taylor, and to completely break under the fourth prophet, Wilford Woodruff. Abraham Lincoln ran for the presidency in 1860 on a Republican platform that pledged to, quote, abolish the twin relics of barbarism, polygamy, and slavery, end quote. Slavery was abolished before Lincoln's assassination with the adoption of the 13th Amendment. In the attempt to abolish polygamy, Congress passed the Edmunds-Tucker Act in 1887. This legislation not only abolished polygamy, but it also dissolved the corporation of the Mormon Church. Mormon polygamists at the Utah Penitentiary. As a result of the Edmunds-Tucker Act, about 1,300 Mormon leaders and their polygamist followers were jailed. Here's a picture of a few of the Mormon polygamists outside the Utah Penitentiary. And here is a picture of George Q. Cannon, Mormon apostle with a bouquet. Cannon, with his bouquet, was extracted from the center of the previous picture. Pressures from within the church and without forced the fourth Mormon prophet, Wilford Woodruff, to issue the Manifesto of 1890. So, beginning in 1849, after the Utah Territory had issued 7 unsuccessful petitions for statehood, the Manifesto of 1890 finally abolished polygamy. As a result, on January 4th, 1896, the long battle for Utah statehood was won on terms required by the American Republic. Part 2. The Mormon Oligarchy, 2023. The long struggle for Utah statehood revealed that Mormons prefer to live in an authoritarian kingdom. They believe their leaders are divinely chosen, divinely commissioned, divinely connected, and divinely inspired. They also believe that they have the one true baptism, the power to seal families together for time and all eternity, and that they are members of the one true church. The highest Mormon priority is to their sacred kingdom, and democracy is a secondary concern at best. Every American patriot knows America's creed. It is found in the Declaration of Independence, and it states that all men are created equal, that we all have God-given rights to life and liberty, and the right to pursue our own personal pathways to happiness. Legitimate government. Our creed also states that all legitimate government is based on the consent of the governed. Patriots know that with the above statement, our founders made a powerful national commitment to democracy. Chris Hedges graduated from Harvard Divinity School and is a Presbyterian minister. He has also served for many years as a foreign correspondent for the New York Times, and he is a distinguished author as well. One of his books, published in 2007, is titled American Fascists and subtitled The Christian Right and the War on America. Hedges identifies the dominionists of the evangelical movement as the core of American fascism. He also explains that the Christian right prefers an authoritarian Christian nation to the free, democratic nation that we enjoy today. An authoritarian Christian nation would issue commandments that would destroy diversity, freedom of thought and choice, individual rights, and the practice of other faiths. It seems to me that the evangelicals are not the only ones who are advocates of authoritarian kingdoms. Let's take a close look at the structure and practices of modern Mormonism. In the Mormon kingdom, the top three men are referred to as the first presidency. Specifically, they are the prophet, seer, and revelator, and his first and second counselors. The prophet and his counselors teach that they receive divine revelations for the entire Mormon kingdom. Serving directly under the top three men are the 12 appointed apostles, who examine the revelations of the first presidency and then pass them on down to a quorum of 70 men. The quorum of the 70s is the administrative unit of the Mormon kingdom. Working through a network of regional representatives, stake presidents, and bishops, the 70s convey the dictates of the first presidency to millions of Mormons worldwide. So the first presidency, the 12 apostles, and the 70s add up to a total of 85 men. Each are paid $150,000 annually to dictate how Mormon members should think and behave, what they should eat and drink, when they should shop, when they should study scriptures, when they should meet as a family, what they should read and watch, how they should dress and groom, and what they should pay in tithing, which is 10% of their gross income. In this authoritarian kingdom, the members are given a vote, but it is by common consent only. The various congregations in the Mormon hierarchy are presented the commandments and instructions passed down from the top, as well as names of present leaders and proposed new leaders. Members are asked to manifest their support of each dictate or leader by raising their right hand. And in a follow-up gesture, members are asked to manifest their opposition by raising their right hand as well. But a right hand in opposition to the dictates of the Mormon oligarchy could bring a referral to a church court where decisions about disfellowship or even excommunication are made. Do Mormon kingdom builders qualify as part of what Chris Hedges calls the Christian right? Do Mormons who prefer to live in a kingdom threaten American democracy? Do the people who live in the Mormon kingdom appreciate and support American democracy? Utah's right-wing Senator Mike Lee doesn't seem to support democracy. On October 8, 2020, at 2:24 a.m., he tweeted, quote, "Democracy isn't the objective. Liberty, peace, and prosperity are. We want the human condition to flourish. Rank democracy can thwart that." End quote. Rank democracy? Does Senator Lee mean that democracy is rank and putrid? The Harris-Pence debate. In 2020, during the Kamala Harris-Mike Pence debate for the vice presidency, which was held in Salt Lake City, Senator Lee tweeted that, quote, "We are not a democracy," end quote. And he questioned the role of democracy in the United States government. Is democracy expendable? It is quite clear that some of us fear democracy. Others hate democracy and are actively planning to end it. But there are people who revere democracy as well. Do you remember Abraham Lincoln's words at the close of his Gettysburg Address? Speaking about the Civil War, he said, quote, "We here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth." To those who would dismiss these magnificent words, what do you have in mind as a replacement for American democracy? What do you have in mind?